Webster defines divorce as follows: a court decision that annuls a marriage in whole or in part, freeing one from all marital obligations. Quite difficult, isn't it? But now those printed words mean little or nothing to me. These are just words, and they don't convey how I feel. I'm not saying the definition is wrong. I'm just saying that there was more to my marriage than what's on the damn page. This was my life, damn it, or at least it used to be. It doesn't matter if you've been married 10 days or 10 years, divorce takes a lot out of you, whether you're the one initiating the divorce or the party being sought to be divorced. I was born and raised Catholic, and the first time I heard the word divorce was in a country song by Tammy Wynette. She started by spelling the word and went from there. Our divorce becomes final today, Tammy sang in the first line of her song, and to me that was it. Mine hasn't gotten there yet, but it's moving in that direction. Just so you understand where I'm coming from, I didn't start this and only found out when I was handed the paperwork at work. A quick call to my wife's cell phone, and all I was told was, read the documents. I didn't want to read those damn documents. I wanted to hear from her why she was doing this, but she hung up before I got my answer. Okay, maybe we didn't have a fairy tale marriage, but I didn't think it was that bad. It just took a little more effort sometimes. But isn't that the case in every marriage? Money has always been an issue for us, especially after the birth of our son Danny. Becky went from a carefree life to being a new mother working several hours a day, and it wasn't until Danny was old enough to be left with a nanny. You see, Becky didn't want to have kids, at least not until we were married and had a job for at least a couple of years. Now she loves going to parties, concerts, and, above all, shopping for clothes. Basically, living at home with a guy she loved to death. She thought she had it all, and maybe she did. We, or more accurately, she, had everything planned. We were supposed to get married and travel the world in the first couple of years. Just then we were going to think about buying a house and settling down with one, maybe two children, but I ruined those plans a little. We were on a date, and everything was going great, at least in my opinion. I wanted to have sex, but she didn't want to that night. I think I insisted on it and talked her into it. I got a blanket from the trunk of my car, and under the stars we started making love, and yes, it was love. God, how I loved her. My one big mistake that night was leaving condoms in the glove compartment of my car. 2 months later, an angry Becky accused me of being careless. She couldn't take birth control pills because they made her physically sick, so birth control was my responsibility. Jesus Christ, what are we going to do now? My parents will be furious, and although my father loves you, he will be very angry with you for what you did, she said, crying. Honey, we're just getting married a little earlier than planned, that's all. That's it. What about the baby? She screamed at me. The A word was on both of our minds, but being Catholics, neither of us wanted to say it out loud, even though we both thought about it. Becky went from being a slender 5'6" beauty with light brown hair to being out of shape, as she called herself. Her long locks were replaced by a short cut, which she said was easier to maintain, and I learned very quickly not to say anything about her weight. More than once, I caught her looking into her full-length mirrors, sad as she rubbed her belly. She wasn't happy. I tried, God knows how hard I tried. We had a small wedding with just family and a few friends instead of the big one Becky had always dreamed of. There was no honeymoon because money was still tight, and Becky made it clear that she wasn't going to walk around some resort looking like a whale in some shapeless outfit, so we stayed home and tried to make it everything possible. We found a nice 2-story house that had been on the market for over 2 years. It wasn't anything special now, but it had potential. In this economy, the owner wanted to get rid of it, but we made a lease deal with him with an option to buy in 2 years. He didn't like it because he wanted his money, but we somehow convinced him. Becky liked the house, and for the first time in a long time, she began to smile again. She was dreaming about paint and curtains on the windows, while I was thinking about all the hard work that would have to be done to make it a real home for us. After one of the hottest summers on record, Becky gave birth to our son. He weighed 9 pounds, 10 ounces, and although she didn't have an easy birth, I was there every step of the way. Danny was born after 16 hours of intense contractions. She was exhausted and beyond tired, looking like a wimp holding our son for the first time. She smiled, but I think it was more because it was finally over than because of the joy she held. Everyone was happy for us and said we were family now. Whatever that means, it was hard, but the hard work of adding another family member only drove us further apart. Becky's mom encouraged her to breastfeed Danny. It was supposed to be healthier for the baby, but she had problems with it from day one, and I couldn't help her with that. Becky didn't have small breasts, but she didn't have large ones either. The nurses told her there wouldn't be any problems and showed her how to express milk when Danny wasn't feeding. I guess they didn't take into account his insatiable appetite. From the very beginning, all he wanted to do was eat, sleep, poop, and eat again. My wife became more and more nervous every day. "Honey, why don't we put him on formula and let you rest? You haven't slept well since we left the hospital, and then I could take over the night feedings. Mother's milk contains special substances, and it is better for our son. Don't you understand anything?" she snapped. To be honest, I didn't really understand, but I quickly learned the hard way. When he developed colic, it only made life worse. Now he was skipping sleep and going straight from eating to crying to pooping and back to food. Finally, Becky relented and we switched him to formula, but that didn't completely solve all of our problems. After 4 long, difficult months, our parents gave us the best gift ever: 2 weekends alone. Becky's parents picked up Danny on Friday afternoon and kept him until late Sunday evening. Our sex life was almost non-existent, so I thought we would spend the weekend in bed reconnecting. I turned out to be half right. I came home Friday night with Becky's favorite Chinese food and found her fast asleep. I decided that it would be better to let her sleep until she woke up, and then we would have dinner and make some love. I dined alone and went to bed with my wife just after 11. I woke up at 7:30 in the morning, made coffee, and waited. At 10:32 the next morning, she came downstairs in her old blue terry robe and bunny slippers. "I think I died and went to heaven last night," she said, smiling and stretching. I went to bed a little after 2, after Mom picked Danny up and fell asleep. The next thing I remember is waking up at 9:30 that morning. "Why didn't you wake me up?" "Honey, you needed a good night's sleep more than the Chinese food last night," I said, sipping my second cup of coffee. "I have coffee, and I'm going to make the breakfast of your dreams. So sit down and have a cup of coffee while I do this." Sausages and French toast with fresh fruit and whipped cream were what we dreamed about that morning. I cooked until she couldn't eat another bite, and then I cleaned the kitchen while she showered. When she came out, I kissed her wet body and began to flirt. She told me to go shower and shave, or there would be no more kissing. Okay, I was delighted. I was going to make love to my wife. It took a long time, but I thought I could arrange at least 2 sessions before lunch. To save time, I shaved in the shower and made sure my chin was as smooth as a baby's. I jumped out of the shower, dried myself off, and with a big smile on my face, went to look for my wife. Maybe she was wearing something lacy and waiting for me in bed. My hormones screamed. I hurried back to our bedroom. Damn, she was fully clothed. "Hurry up and get dressed. I have a big shopping list for today. We'll start at Walmart, and then I want to stop by Lowe's and look at shutters for our bedroom. I don't like curtains, and the sun wakes me up too early every morning. I thought we'd hang out for a bit this morning. You know, let's reconnect. Steve, we have all evening for this. We have things to do now. We can hang out later if we have time." If there is time, my little brain screamed. I got dressed. We bought paint for Danny's room and 2 sets of wood shutters for our bedroom at Lowe's. At Walmart, we bought new sheets for our bed and an extra set of bath towels that were on sale. But it took Becky forever to leave the store because she had to walk the entire length of the store to see what else was on sale. We returned home just after 2:30. Then, instead of making time for the 2 of us, she wanted me to install shutters and paint the walls in Danny's room. The shutters took me about 2 hours to complete, and while I was installing them, Becky rearranged the furniture in Danny's room so we could, or rather I could, paint the walls. I applied the first coat to the walls and then the trim. She said something about taking a dinner break, but I was on a mission. So she ate the remaining Chinese food, and I worked until almost 10 o'clock. God, how I hate finishing work, I thought, sitting on the floor, leaning against the crib after finishing work, with the dirty brush still in my hand. When Becky said the walls would look better with a second coat of paint, I nearly shit myself. You don't like the color? He looked different in the sample, that's all, she said with a grimace on her face. I applied a second coat that night. She was watching TV in bed when I came in a little after midnight. I was extremely tired, dirty, and smelled of paint and sweat. Look around the room and tell me what you think while I take a shower. I was exhausted. I had been working non-stop for the better part of 10 hours, and although I was a little hungry, I was too tired to eat. The shower almost put me to sleep, and after I dried off, I crawled into bed, and before I knew it, I was asleep. Like me on Friday night, she didn't wake me up. I found her Sunday morning in Danny's room, moving furniture back. I helped her, and then we both went downstairs for breakfast. I was super hungry and made Belgian waffles and bacon. I think I ate 3 whole ones before I stopped. While sipping a cup of coffee, Becky asked what I planned to do for the rest of the day. With a gleam in my eye, I chased her upstairs, and we spent the next 2 hours in bed. It had been a long time, and we both needed this release. It was a welcome break, but by 4:30 Danny was back and life had returned to our new normal. 2 weeks later, when my parents took Danny, we went out on a Saturday night with our old friends. We were the only ones who were married with a child. Even though everyone said they were jealous of us, I knew they were glad it wasn't them. We didn't make love that weekend, but we had sex 3 or 4 times. 6 months into my new job, I was informed that the company would reimburse me for all additional training expenses related to my job. Since I was studying for a degree in business and marketing, everything I needed to complete my degree fit. I was over the moon, but Becky wasn't. It's not fair. You'll be going to work and school, and I'll be stuck at home taking care of Danny. Honey, once we get back on our feet a little, you can finish your degree. It's just that now they will pay for everything except books. It would be stupid not to take advantage of this. She understood, but like I said, she wasn't happy. The next 2 years were a whirlwind. I attended lectures 2 evenings a week and took an online course 1 evening. I tried to leave Saturday and Sunday free for our family, in which I tried to include some kind of entertainment and prepared all the meals. When Becky started working for a couple of hours in the evening, I was happy for her. This allowed her to leave the house, and now she had her own pocket money. Life has finally gotten better. When I had 4 courses left for my degree and learned that I could take them all online, I did for my wife what I promised her years ago. I told her she could finish her degree. Are you serious? Are you kidding? Honey, now it's your turn. Did I get sex that night? Hell yes, and it was much better than the quick sessions I've had over the last year. We were so busy that we started to grow apart because there was never time for the 2 of us, but now there will be. I made an agreement with her parents and mine to look after Danny while I was at work, and in the evening I would take over childcare responsibilities. Becky deserved it after helping me for so many years. School was difficult for Becky, and she wasn't getting the high grades she had before things went wrong. She had to work a lot harder and even joined a study group to improve her grades. I offered to help her, but she insisted that she could handle it herself. I think her first year was the most difficult of our entire marriage. I felt like I had more of a roommate than a wife. She studied 3 days a week and was with the study group 3 nights a week, and again there was no time for the 2 of us to reconnect. Maybe that's how it was when I was studying, but I don't remember it being that bad. Where do you want to go? I asked, almost in shock. I want to go to Panama City for spring break with my study group. Becky, I can barely see you, and now you want to go away with the people you spend every free minute with instead of being with your husband. What's wrong with this picture? I asked. There was irritation in my voice. Steve, it'll be Thursday night, and I'll be back late Sunday night. This doesn't mean I'll be gone for 2 whole weeks. I don't drive a car, and I still have some pocket money. Come on, I think I deserve it. I wasn't happy, but I told her okay. I even gave her some extra money. I told her to call me when she arrived and pull herself together. Reminded her that she was an adult. She gave me an angry look after that comment. I kissed her goodbye Thursday night and didn't hear a word from her until she was on her way back Sunday afternoon. If you think I was angry, that would be an understatement. I called the hotel at least a dozen times and left messages for her, but she never called back. I didn't know any of her friends, so I didn't have their cell phone numbers. Her phone was turned off Thursday night and didn't turn on until Sunday morning. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be, but would you believe that I lost my phone and didn't find it until Sunday morning? She tried to explain when she finally called. No, I shouted into the phone. Would you believe that I was drunk for 3 days? That's what I would believe. I was furious. What else did you do that you shouldn't? I asked, not even wanting to hear the answer. I didn't do anything, and I don't like the tone of your voice, she replied. What do you mean? Oh, I don't know. What else do drunk women do on spring break? Will I see your photo on the internet or worse? I don't like where this conversation is going. We'll talk about this when I get home. We will definitely talk. I hung up. Things got really ugly on Sunday night. I didn't directly ask if she cheated on me, but I hinted at it indirectly. She vehemently denied it and asked how I could accuse her of such a thing. I don't know, maybe because you said it yourself, you were too drunk to call your husband and tell him everything was okay, because maybe everything wasn't okay. Our marriage began to decline after that night. She apologized for not calling and for acting crazy, but there didn't seem to be any sincerity in her apology. After that, it was all my fault. If I hadn't gotten her pregnant, we would have lived easily with good jobs and traveled the world. She told me about how this or that group would go to the Caribbean, Mexico, or Europe for summer vacations that we would never be able to go on. Becky, we're not dead yet, are we? So we're not as free as your single friends, but would you give up Danny for that? Steve, what a terrible comment. I love Danny to death. I never said that I regretted that he was born. She didn't say it out loud, but I know she thought about it more than once. So our life and marriage continued. He was a little better, but nowhere near what he was before the trip to Panama City. We made love, but mostly we had sex. When I told her that I missed the long teasing and romantic sessions we had in the past, I was told to take what we got because we now had a little one in the house. When I arranged a free weekend for us, Becky informed me that her study group was going to meet that Saturday evening. When I told her to choose what she wanted to do, she talked me into going with her to their meeting, which turned out to be a terrible mistake. They were young, single, and had one goal: to have fun and enjoy life. I thought back to my first 2 years of college and how much I drank, but after 4 years I had other priorities than getting drunk. I tried to fit in, but I didn't like those kinds of nights anymore, and although there were a lot of beautiful single women there, I was more than happy with what I had. There was a lot of kissing, flirting, and touching hands with most of the silly games. I think if you drink enough, all inhibitions disappear along with common sense. Most of these people will never remember half of what they did that night. Around 1 a.m., I grabbed Becky when one of her buddies got a little too pushy. I found him kissing my wife and trying to grab her breasts. I didn't beat him because I don't think he could even get up. Becky, she was also drunk, but she had enough common sense not to say not a word. Overall, none of the members of her study group made a good impression on me. We didn't make love that night. On Sunday, she was nursing a bad hangover, and I was quietly seething. I know you're angry, but I don't want to hear about it now. Chris was drunk and didn't know what he was doing or with whom. But you knew, didn't you? What would you do if you found me kissing some woman and holding her breasts? Or do you just not care? It put her in her place. Steve, what a terrible question. Do you think I deliberately wanted to be groped that night? It was a stupid mistake on both sides, that's all. We wouldn't have done this if we were sober. How many of these stupid mistakes were there in Panama City where I wasn't there to stop it? How many times do I have to tell you? There was nothing there. I didn't do anything with anyone else. Why don't you believe me? Well, if it could happen when I was in the same room, what happened when I was 6 hours away? Becky got angry again. If I hear one more accusation, I swear that you will never have any sex with me again. It's a cold day in hell, I quickly answered her. Becky, you just don't see what's happening to us, do you? You are a married woman and a mother, but you act like a single girl again. You keep choosing your new young friends over your family, and it bothers me. Well, if I hadn't gotten pregnant, she started to say, but I interrupted her. For the millionth time, I'm sorry, but if you can't get Danny back into your womb, you'll have to live with it. Danny's not going anywhere, but if you don't get your head out of your ass, our marriage won't survive. I challenged her. I saw steam coming out of her ears. She turned and walked into our bedroom and slammed the door, locking it. I loved her, but she made it harder and harder every day, and like I said, she didn't see it. As we gathered for dinner, the atmosphere was icy at best, and now she goes out almost every night with friends. When she came home on Friday night, we had a big fight. In the end, I gave her a choice, friends or our marriage. You can't tell me what to do. I'm not some 8-year-old girl you can boss around. Then stop acting like that. Steve, you've made every decision since we got married, but not this time. These are my friends, and I will see them whenever I want. Then I know where your priorities are. I left and didn't come back for 2 days, which was probably childish on my part, but I was afraid of what I might say or do. The following Thursday, I was given the documents at work. I tried to talk to her, but she refused to talk to me in person or on the phone. I was told to read the documents because everything is written there. Irreconcilable differences, that's what was written in the papers. She wanted child support for Danny, child support for herself because she wasn't working, a house with variable mortgage payments, and full medical and dental care. I don't know what she was thinking. Basically, they demanded more than I earned. Doug, my father's friend and lawyer, took pity on me and did all my divorce work for free. He told me to seek joint physical custody of Danny to minimize child support and fight spousal support. Becky was perfectly capable of working, and since it was my money that was paying for her education, he said to stop immediately. Steve, don't go to extremes, if only because you have a son, and you will have to have at least some contact with her. Doug, I don't even want this divorce. If I could just talk to her, I'm sure I could convince her to cancel it. But she never spoke to me until it was too late for both of us. As they say, life went on. She and Danny moved in with her parents for a while. She still wouldn't talk to me, and it seemed like a lost cause. Her parents were on her side, just like mine were on mine. After I told my boss that I might quit because of the impending divorce, he told me that he had been through 2 divorces himself and gave me some advice. That's when he told me to stop all my overtime and reduce my salary. Are we doing that bad? Steve, I like you and I understand what you're going through. You need to be patient for the next 6 to 8 months because they will base your child support on what you make now. You will lose more than 1/3 of your income, but it will be temporary. If you need some extra money, I know a guy who owns a gym in Ashland and is willing to pay cash for cleaning every night. Your wife will soon realize that things will not go as she was told. He was right. I left home and moved back in with my parents. I turned off my phone, cable, electricity, and stopped making my monthly mortgage payments. I had no way to pay what she demanded. My boss gave my lawyer a letter saying that my overtime would end immediately due to the downturn in the economy, and the employees might have to accept a 5-year, 5% pay cut. Steve, why don't you pay your house and other bills? We're going to lose our house, she screamed at me over the phone. And what? What is your point? Where are Danny and I going to live? I think from your parents, definitely not from mine. But I was told that you will pay for the house until Danny turns 18 so we can live there. I would rather lose my house and my job than pay for you to live there for free. How stupid do you think I am? But that's what they told me. I don't care who told you what. I'll pay child support for Danny, and that's it. Last time I checked, I didn't have fool written on my forehead, at least not now. Maybe we can talk about it, come to an agreement. I hate losing the house after all the work we've done. Home means nothing to me. I was hoping that we could solve our problems, but it seems you have your own plan. It's a pity. We used to have something special. The lawyers argued for almost 2 months. Becky's lawyer wasn't the smartest person. She was his second choice, but he was cheap, so you get what you pay for. With my salary cut by 40% and my demand for joint physical custody, I threw him more than one surprise. My lawyer, Doug, said that I would pay the standard 20% of my salary if Becky had full custody, but only 15% for joint custody. There would be no child support, no house payments, and Becky would have to assume 50% of all existing debts. We only had one credit card with less than $1,000 in debt, but our medical bills were over $10,000. I paid a certain amount every month, but after they handed me the documents, I stopped paying. Every day she became less pink. When Becky's lawyer requested a private meeting, I refused the first request. The bank was talking about a possible foreclosure, and since no one had mowed the lawn for the last 8 weeks, the house wasn't looking great. I worked during the day and drove 20 miles to my second job, which took about 2 hours each night. The only thing that matters, well, it kept me busy and focused. I saw Danny on the weekends at my mom's and still managed to get my schoolwork done. Did I have time to think about Becky? Hell yes, but when I did it, I just got angry again, so I tried to put her out of my mind as much as possible. Becky proposed a compromise that shocked me to my core. She suggested that we both live in the house until we could either sell it or one of us could buy out the other's share. She and Danny would live upstairs and I would live in the basement, and the main floor would be no man's land. This way we won't lose what little nest egg we had. We'll split the bills and share custody of Danny without having to shuttle him back and forth every week. She asked me to pay the mortgage, and she would pay the utilities. My share of the house will be proportionate because I will be paying most of the expenses. We will split groceries and all other household expenses. I think this was her last attempt to save the house. I decided it was time to meet. Well, what do you think about my proposal? I don't think it will work, I replied. You've been doing nothing but complaining for the last 6 months we've been together. How will it be any different now? Well, I'll be upstairs and you'll be in the basement. Our contact will be limited, and we are only doing this to preserve what little nest egg we have. I think when the market opens, we'll make at least $30,000 on our house. I wouldn't want to lose that after all the work we've done. You mean after all my work, don't you? I lived there too, didn't I? When you decided to honor us with your presence, I replied sarcastically. Hey, I've been studying and studying, she replied. Yes, of course, tell me another lie. It became ugly again. I don't care what you think, I didn't cheat on you. Becky, this won't work. The first time your friends show up and start annoying me, I'll kick them out and it'll all be over. And of course, I'm not going to be your babysitter while you go out every evening. Why don't we just say we had a good run while it lasted and call it a day? You don't even want to try? Why, you wanted this divorce because I was the one who held you back after I ruined your life, so forgive me if I don't have a lot of sympathy for you. I never said that. Oh, sorry. You mean spending 6 days a week with your friends was more important than spending time with your family? I studied for Christ's sake. How many times do I have to tell you this? You don't need to explain anything to me anymore. You're getting what you wanted, and I hope you choke on it. Things didn't go as Becky thought they would. How about we set rules for each of us? You know who is doing what and when. This way, there will be no misunderstandings. She was begging now. Damn it, I still loved this woman, but I hated her at the same time. Maybe if we do this, she'll realize what she's missing out on and call off the damn divorce. It was a long shot, but it was my last chance. Okay, you give me a list of your conditions, and I'll make mine. Let's see if we can come to some kind of agreement, I told her. Great, Give me a couple of days and we'll meet again. I didn't answer. You'll see, we're two adults, and I know we can do this. 2 days later, we exchanged lists, and that's when the sparks flew. She lost about 50% of her conditions, and I lost about a third of mine. She will cook and go shopping, and I will take care of the house. We will share childcare responsibilities, and each of us will have a free evening, either Friday or Saturday. I was adamant that there would be no parties and no overnight guests. We both agreed to the final terms, signed them, notarized them, and included them in the divorce papers. It was difficult to catch up on bills, but we split the expenses. Becky had to take out loans for this and for tuition, among other things. She now worked 3 or 4 evenings a week, and with 3 classes of her own, she had no free time at all. I ate all my dinners in the basement because it was too painful to sit at the table and pretend we were still a happy family in front of Danny. Finally, one evening she brought the food she had prepared for herself and Danny down to my room and said that if I didn't come upstairs to eat with them, they would eat downstairs with me every night. I gave in. A month later, everything was almost normal. We got along and even laughed together. We haven't gotten along that well in the last year. I helped her with Danny whenever I could, and when she asked me to help with her studies, I gladly agreed. Like I said, this may have been the wake-up call we both needed. When she came home late Friday night drunk, I helped her upstairs, undressed her, and put her to bed. The next morning, she couldn't take her eyes off me. Thanks for your help last night. I think I've had a little too much. No problem, I replied. The divorce papers were working their way through the court with less than a month left. I tried my best to show her that we should try again without saying it outright when 2 things happened. This was about 2 weeks before our divorce would become final. That evening, I was cleaning the gym when she walked in. She was about 22, just over 5'2", with an athlete's body, strong and toned. I think she was practicing in one of the back rooms and took me by surprise because I thought everyone had already gone home. We exchanged glances as she headed towards the women's shower. I was almost done when she came out wearing jeans and a short t-shirt. Steve, isn't it? Yes, Steve Moore to be exact, I said, smiling at her. Hi, I'm Amber Collins. I teach an afternoon aerobics class. Kenny lets me study at night when most people have already left. This way, I don't have to share exercise equipment, and I don't have to be bothered by other people unless I want to, she said, smiling. Well, now that you're done, I can finish cleaning the girls' locker room and get out of here. It's late, and I'm hungry and tired at the same time. How about I help you out, and we grab a quick bite to eat, she replied. I wasn't sure how to feel about her offer, but I didn't refuse such a gift. I smiled, and 20 minutes later, we were done and out of there. She said she knew a good place nearby, and I should follow her. 10 minutes later, we were inside and ordered. Dark, rich black hair that was still damp from the shower, olive skin, and the greenest eyes I had ever seen. Steve, if you look any closer, you'll burn 2 holes in me, she said with a laugh. Sorry, I said, a little embarrassed. You're just really beautiful, you know that. If this is an attempt to hit on me, you'll have to try harder, she said, laughing. I blushed. Hell, I probably turned as red as a schoolboy. I'm sorry, I hope I didn't offend you, and I'm really not trying to hit on you, I stuttered. Why not? Am I not good enough for you? This led to an hour-long conversation about my lousy love life. You see, I'm still trying to save my marriage, I told her. Wow, talk about the limit. What are you going to do next week when it's final? Keep trying until I see that there is no more hope for reconciliation. You are better than me. I would have left her and moved on. Life is too short to waste it on someone so stupid. We continued talking for about another hour. Amber, I need to call it a night. I have school to finish by tomorrow night and a list of household chores that never ends. I really had a great time today. Maybe we'll see you again. Steve, I work at the gym. Of course we'll see each other again. I wish you luck, but if it doesn't work out, don't forget about me. I can always use a training partner. As I drove home, I wondered what she meant by her last comment. The first thing I noticed when I pulled up to my house was that someone else's car was parked in my place and Becky's car was still in the garage. Looking at my watch, I saw that it was a little after 10:30, so maybe it was just one of her friends visiting. I parked in Becky's spot and walked into the house. The kitchen was clean, and I didn't see or hear anyone, so I went about my business. I went upstairs around 12:30 to grab a beer when I heard a familiar sound from upstairs. Thinking that I had heard it, I quietly walked up the stairs and stood outside the door that had once been our bedroom. When we made love, Becky was never quiet. That's what I heard all the way from the kitchen. I grabbed my beer from the kitchen and headed back to my new bedroom. Men aren't supposed to cry, but I cried anyway. I collapsed physically and emotionally that night. For the first time since I was handed the papers, I realized that my marriage was truly over. Hell, she didn't even wait until our divorce became final next week. 2 more beers subsided the pain a little, but now there was a feeling of emptiness. For the first time in my life, I felt lost and alone. I wanted to fucking die. I left before anyone woke up on Sunday morning. She called me later in the day, but I didn't answer the phone. She said something about our usual Sunday dinner, but I had lost my appetite, and besides, she was the last person I wanted to see. I got home around 10:30. I had dinner with my parents and spent a couple of hours at the bar, of all places. I didn't get drunk because for the first time I had to make plans for the future. Now my life was my main concern. On Monday, I came to work early and even stopped at McDonald's for breakfast. I still felt dead inside, but at least the wait was finally over. My boss asked if I was okay, and all I could do was tell him that my divorce would be final this week. I guess your plan to get her back didn't work, huh? I just shook my head and went back to work. I needed to stay busy so my mind didn't wander to places I didn't want to go. I went to my mom's for dinner. "Do you know Becky is looking for you?" she asked me. "And what? In 3 days, she will be a free woman, and I will leave her life." I was going to tell her about Saturday night, but I wondered what the point was. I headed to my second job, and within an hour, I was up to my neck in sweaty towels and empty water bottles. I was wiping down the treadmills when I saw Amber. She waved and returned to one of the aerobics rooms. I was in pain and angry. I didn't really want to talk to anyone. I cleaned the women's locker room long before she finished her workout. I was already walking out the door when I saw her enter the main gym room. She waved, I waved back and left. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed there were no guests today, but that didn't matter anymore. I crept downstairs and closed and locked my bedroom. I had just finished undressing when I heard a knock on the door. "Steve, are you there?" asked Becky. I sat silently on the bed, looking at that damn door. I wanted to open it and shake it. I wanted to tell her that she killed any love I had for her, and that I hoped the sex was worth it. But I chose the coward's path and waited for her to leave before falling asleep. She was waiting for me in the kitchen on Tuesday morning. She looked like she hadn't slept a single night. She was sitting at the table, sipping a cup of coffee in her blue robe. "Sorry. Nothing to apologize for. I don't know how this happened. I don't need to know how or why, and I certainly don't need to know the damn details." I was angry. "Our divorce will become final on Thursday, and I plan to leave before the weekend," I told her. "What about our agreement?" I just looked at her. I couldn't believe I was hearing this from her. "Becky, I thought in my crazy head that maybe I could convince you to give us another chance, but it seems you had other plans. I told you from the beginning that this wouldn't work, and after last Saturday I finally realized that by this weekend we will be officially divorced. You got what you wanted. I hope this is exactly what you expected. So, excuse me, I need to go to work and find an apartment." I walked out of her life and our marriage. Until I found a place, I moved back in with my parents and didn't pay any more rent on the house or anything else. I'm going to pay Becky 20% of what I make because I can't take care of Danny and work 2 jobs. My life was going to hell. My mom was sad it didn't work out, but I was starting to feel relieved that it was officially over. We had mostly unnecessary furniture, and I didn't want anything from our bedroom. I let her take whatever she wanted. Thursday night, after returning from the gym, Becky wanted to talk, but all I wanted to do was pack my things and get out of there. Steve, think about what you are doing. Let's not overreact to what happened, she tried to say. I turned around and said the last thing with anger in my eyes. I should have kicked Chris's ass the first night, and then maybe you and your other friends wouldn't think I was a cuckold. I don't know when you lost respect for me, whether it was during your spring break or during one of your many study sessions. It doesn't matter anymore. You blamed me for your unfortunate life, but you never took responsibility for what happened. I didn't do it alone, we did it together. Damn, I know we didn't have an easy life, but it was a good one. I loved you and was ready to do anything for you and Danny, but you needed more than I could give you. I'm glad I found out now and not 20 years later. At least now I have time to do it over. She was crying, I was on the edge too, and with 2 suitcases in my hands, I left and closed this chapter of my life. Her lawyer threatened to sue me again, but I told him through Doug that he could shove his threat down his ass. Becky broke our agreement, not me. Everything was clear and understandable. She tried to talk to me for weeks, but I didn't pick up the phone or answer her emails. I found an apartment closer to my second job. It would cut down on my commute back and forth each evening, and it was as far away from Becky as possible. I saw Danny almost every 2 weeks, and he didn't understand why I didn't live with him and his mother anymore. I just hugged him and told him I loved him and missed him. It was his mother who had to explain this to him. I tried to come to my mother after Becky dropped him off and left before she returned. She was the person I never wanted to see again. Every now and then my mom would pass me a letter from Becky, but I would just tear it in half and throw it in the trash while she watched. Steve, you still have too much hatred in your heart. You need to forgive her. You will feel much better. Mom, how can you forgive a person who tore your heart out and killed something beautiful? I don't think I'll ever have it in me to forgive her. God, Steve, do you still love her that much? Although I didn't want to admit it, I still loved her with all my soul. Maybe I should get coward or screw tattooed on my forehead. Well, if I didn't see her, that made it a little easier. At work, I was again allowed to take overtime, and I took full advantage of it, both in the city and on business trips. I was still working on my second job and had money in my pocket for the first time in a long time. I continued to be friends with Amber, but she seemed a little distant the last couple of months. Fuck everyone, I don't need another crazy narcissistic bitch, although sex would be nice once in a while. Months passed, and I missed the touch of a woman, her sweet taste, and the release that only a woman can give. The gym was empty on Friday night, or at least that's what I thought. I was just finishing my exercises when Amber came up behind me. She turned me around and gave me a big kiss with a hint of tongue that made it especially interesting. Well, I wanted to do this for a long time. If I waited for you to make the first move, I would have to wait for my pension payments. Finish your business, and we'll go on a date whether you like it or not, she said. I stood silently with a stupid expression on my face. Steve, this is not a request. Quickly finish your business while I take a shower. What usually took an hour or more took 15 minutes this time. Yes, the gym that night wasn't as clean as usual, but I had other things on my mind than dirty machines and sweaty towels. She stepped out of the shower with wet hair and a gym bag in her hands. Follow me to my house. I need to change into something nicer if you're going to take me out to dinner tonight, she said, smiling. Her house was about 25 minutes' drive from mine and was much nicer than mine. 10 minutes later, she emerged from her bedroom wearing ripped jeans, a very bright t-shirt, and her dark hair pulled back into a long ponytail. She looked cute and sexy at the same time. We, or rather she, chose an Asian restaurant. It was small with a limited menu, but the food was excellent. I've been watching you walk around the hall gloomily for several months now, and I decided that it's time for you to get back into the game. She left you, forget about it. You are free from this bitch. You have a son and your whole life ahead of you. Do you know what they say? Living life to the fullest is the best revenge. After dinner, we returned to her house. We spent the next 2 hours kissing. She didn't want to go any further, and honestly, I wasn't ready either, even though my body was saying otherwise. The drive home was difficult as my excitement got in the way. As soon as I got home, I solved my problem and thought only about Amber. "Hello," a tired voice came from the phone. "Sorry, were you asleep?" "Who is this?" "Steve, is that you?" she said, sounding a little more cheerful. "Do you even understand what time it is?" "Looks like about 2:15, I replied apologetically. "I was just thinking about you and decided to call and ask you out on a date." "Let me figure it out. You thought about me from the moment you dropped me off and waited until 2 in the morning to call and ask me out. So, it didn't sound as romantic as I thought it would." "Yes, I think so." "Okay, and never, I repeat, never call me at 2 in the morning again. Understood? When do you want to meet again?" I asked. There was silence on the other end of the line. "Call me tomorrow and we'll talk." "Not at 6 in the morning. You still know how to tell time, I hope?" She hung up. The next day I called, and we started dating on Saturday. After 2 months, we became an exclusive couple and discussed the next issue. "Steve, I don't go to bed with every guy I date, so don't be under any illusions. When I'm ready, I'll tell you. Do you have a problem with this?" "In general, no, but how exactly will I find out?" "Don't worry, you'll find out." And a month later, I realized that she was right. Amber had tickets to some event sponsored by the gym where we worked. I really didn't want to go, but I agreed for her sake, and I think she understood that. "Pick me up at 7 and don't be late. I don't like flashy entrances, if you know what I mean." I walked up to her door with a gerbera in my hand. I thought it would impress her and also tried to look my best in my best semi-formal attire. I knocked on the door, and as soon as she opened, I realized something had changed. She was naked. "Since you didn't want to go to the event, I thought we'd have dinner here." "Do you have a problem with this?" she asked, pulling me inside and kissing me. I wasn't sure if this was real, a bad joke, or a test on her part. "Well, dinner is almost ready, so come in, sit down, and we'll eat," she said, leading me to the kitchen. Turning around, she took off my jacket and tossed it onto one of the dining chairs as she began to unbutton my shirt. When I said, "Settle down," I meant it. Although I wanted to be a gentleman, Amber had other plans and dinner wasn't one of them. 5 minutes later, I was as naked as she was, sitting on the kitchen chair with her on my lap. I opened one eye slightly and realized that Amber was not in bed next to me. Sitting down, I saw that she was getting dressed. "I should be the one running away from you, and not the other way around," I said with a satisfied smile on my face. "Where are you going?" "To classes. I teach a Saturday morning aerobics class." "I was going to leave you a note, but since you're already awake," she said, coming over and kissing me. "Maybe you should do something about your breath. You smell like me, although there's nothing wrong with that." "Maybe I should leave." Amber flopped back onto the bed. "Stay here, I'm not done with you yet, okay?" The right drawer contains a new toothbrush and toothpaste. Mouthwash under the sink. There's food in the refrigerator, so you can eat until I get back. I'll be there in less than 2 hours. She quickly kissed me and walked out the door. After I brushed my teeth and used the rinse, I went to explore the apartment. She had a great one-room new apartment with a full kitchen and living room. The living room had a 42-inch plasma TV and many other electronic toys. I headed to the kitchen. A pot of coffee and a peanut butter bagel became my breakfast. I was reading the newspaper at the kitchen table and had just finished washing up the breakfast dishes when Amber burst through the door. "I urgently need a shower," she said, grabbing my hand. "I think you were right," I said with a grin. Only a blind person could not understand your hint that it's time to move to the next level. We spent most of Saturday in bed doing things I had only dreamed of. After we'd exhausted each other's strength, we snuggled together and took a nap, or at least she took a nap. "Why didn't you wake me up?" she asked, rubbing her eyes. "What time is it now?" "A little after 3 nights," I lied, but with the darkened room she would have to look out the window to prove otherwise. "Liar," she said, hitting me in the arm. You could give me a good load, but you didn't put me on my shoulder blades, not yet, at least. I need to sneak into the gym and clean up a little, I told her. When she offered to go with me and then have dinner together, I did not object. It took both of us no more than an hour to finish everything. Why don't you ever train here? I know Kenny wouldn't mind, and you could tighten up some of those soft spots. What are the soft spots? I asked, taking a courageous pose. Your soft belly and upper arms, to mention a couple. Give me 3 months, and you won't recognize yourself. Or do you like to look like a marshmallow? It sounded like a challenge. Now I understand why divorced men go to the gym. They have a lot more free time than married people, and they want to prove to themselves that they are still attractive to other women, and I was no exception. If I said that Amber bullied me almost every night, it would be an understatement. She was far worse than any marine physical training instructor. She changed my diet and got me off sugar, damn it. Besides water, I could only drink diet soda and beer, and then only if I additionally worked out on the treadmill or elliptical. She was a real slave owner, but it worked. I didn't train for the Mr. Tussie's Universe competition, but I lost 2.5 inches from my waist and gained 15 pounds of muscle mass. For the first time in my life, other women began to pay attention to me. This made me very happy. Amber and I were still together, but she immediately made it clear that she wasn't ready to settle down and get married yet. When she was offered a job at Gold's Gym in Atlanta, she happily accepted the offer. She was to head all the specialized programs and teach only 4 times a week. However, I was sad to see her go for many reasons. Steve, I'm only 7 hours away by car, and you can come see me from time to time. I asked Bobby to keep an eye on you so you don't go astray. I don't want you to go back to being the soft Steve I knew before. We spent all the available time together until it was time for her to leave. We both knew that a long-term, long-distance relationship wouldn't work for us, but it was still hard for me to see her leave, and not just because of the amazing sex. I really cared about her. Steve, if you ever decide to move, keep me in mind. I'm not saying I'm ready to settle down, just that I'd like another chance with you before you decide to settle down. Enjoy yourself, and don't worry. With your new body, you will quickly find a replacement for me. She kissed me again, and she left. Amber was right. People paid attention to me both at work and in the gym. Bobby was much easier on me than Amber, or maybe I was just in better shape. By the summer, I had gained another 10 pounds of muscle mass and decided to stop bulking up. Now I just kept in shape. I still saw Danny every week, but it had been over 5 months since I had seen Becky. Mom kept me updated on her life, whether you like it or not. The house had been repossessed by the bank and was now owned by the bank. Becky was still living with her parents and had reduced her classes from 3 to 1 per semester due to time and money constraints. I was just 1 class away from graduating, and if I had tried harder, I could have graduated in less than 2 months. I loved the online classes. One Sunday, I took Danny to the zoo, and then we went out for pizza, and I stayed a little late. With Danny, there was always something new he wanted to see, and I loved spending time with him. With the rest of the pizza in the box, we headed to my parents' house. When I arrived at the house, I realized that I had fallen into a trap. Becky's blue Chevy was parked in front of me in the driveway. I almost thought about sending Danny alone, but I realized I'd been dodging her for too long. I was no longer the whiny little husband she left behind. I wasn't nervous, but I was still excited about meeting her. With Danny on my shoulders, I walked into the house. My mom and Becky were in the kitchen talking, and my dad, as always, was in the living room watching some sports show. "Hi, Becky," I said in a cautious but happy tone. "One son came back to you with a little wear around the edges," I said. Meanwhile, Danny began telling anyone who would listen what we had done in great detail. "Hey, Steve, it's been quite a while," she said, looking at me with wide eyes. I think she noticed the changes. "You look fit. A single life is clearly good for you." At that moment, an expression of horror appeared on her face. "Sorry, that was rude of me." "It's okay, it's all in the past," I said, looking at her. Becky looked tired. She seemed to have aged 10 years. Her long brown hair was cut short again, and she seemed to have gained a few pounds. I won't comment on her clothes, other than to say that she wasn't very stylish. She noticed that I was appreciating her and tried to straighten her hair to make them look better. Sorry, I must look terrible. I just recovered from the flu. Sorry to hear this. Well, I have to go, I said, hugging and kissing Danny. I also gave Mom a peck on the cheek and said, "Take care of yourself, Becky. Maybe I'll see you sometime." I walked out to my car on shaky legs. Okay, she didn't look good, but she was still Becky, our son's mother. She wasn't as hot as Amber or some of the other girls I've dated, but there was still something special about her. On Monday evening, my mother called. "Well, Mom, I'm a little surprised. I thought you'd definitely call me on Sunday night with all the new gossip and tell me what Becky thinks about the new Steve. Okay, spit it out. Can't a mother just call her son and say, 'Hi, how are you?' Okay, Mom, let's play by your rules." Becky looked terrible. She looked like she had been abandoned. I guess she didn't know I was going to be late, unless you forgot to tell her, which wouldn't surprise me one bit. How am I coping? Honey, you know I don't like to talk bad about anyone, but I can tell that a certain lady was taken aback. When her lower jaw fell to the floor, I couldn't help but smile, although I don't wish her any harm. She called you handsome and asked if you were dating someone. I told her that you dated a few girls, but no one seriously. I think she regrets what she did, especially after finding out that she hasn't had a date in the last 4 months. My mother would be an excellent CIA agent. She could extract the smallest details with just a smile and a casual question. I guess I just wanted to see her reaction to meeting you. I wanted to see the expression on her face after what she did to you. I needed to show her how far you've come without her fat ass. Remind me not to get on your bad side, Mom, I chuckled. Steve, remember that the Rotary auction is next week, and you promised. Come on, Mom, I pleaded. Darling, you promised. And you said that you have 2 more guys who also agree to participate. This is for the sake of a summer camp fund for children. Okay, Jim and Tim agreed to go because it was for a good cause, but they made me promise that they wouldn't sell them to some 60-year-old lady. It's an auction. I can't control who wins who, and don't worry, no one expects them to sleep with the winner, unless they themselves want to. Mom, do I really have to wash your mouth with soap? I feel like I'm being sold. Just for one night, and just in case, your father will be there to make sure you show up. The 3 of us trained hard all week. I ate almost nothing to look fit. Summer camp for children was my father's favorite project, and he gave it his all every year. Last year, he sent 100 children to the camp, and this year he was going to break that record. He and Mom were at a high-profile charity auction where 3 bachelors were being sold. They raised a ton of money, and it got my mom thinking. And when Mom has something on her mind, God help everyone. She persuaded me, and I persuaded 2 more guys. Come on, guys, it'll be fun, and we'll get free drinks and food. I can imagine it, Jim said. Some old hag will win me over and expect me to do dirty work with her. He shuddered. Maybe it'll be some nice gay guy, Tim added with a laugh. Then what do you say? Guys, it's fucking Rotary, damn it, and we're not Chippendale dancers, so let's not get too excited. We'll go out and have a good time and do something good for a group of kids in foster care. Like I said, they agreed, but they did it more for me because they were my friends, and that's what friends do. We all rented tuxedos and looked our best. I refused to eat, but had 2 drinks to relieve some of the tension. We were last on the program, right after dinners at Olive Garden and Longhorn Steakhouse. Like I said, nothing but class. The room was packed when Tim took the stage. Bidding started at $50 and went up to just over $200. Jim's sexy smile raised the stakes to just over $275. I was third. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced into the microphone, remember why we are here, it's for the children. I told them, fork out until it hurts, and then a little more. I flirted with the audience. I handed the microphone to the presenter, and the bidding began. When the bidding stopped at just over $300, I took off my bow tie, opened my jacket, and unbuttoned my shirt, showing everyone my six-pack abs. Now, wouldn't you like to take a guy like that home tonight? The presenter asked the audience. Many older ladies blushed, but the younger ones dug much deeper. The bidding came down to two women. I couldn't see who they were because of the dim lighting. When the bidding reached $350, they began to raise the bids by $5 and $10, and when the amount reached $440, one of them quit the game. I guess you think Becky won over me? Sorry to disappoint, but no, not her. She was there that night, but when it got over $100, she dropped out and just watched from the sidelines. No, it was a blonde fox, about 38 years old, who came on stage to receive her prize. She was dressed to the nines, and her first and only statement was, "Are you ready to go?" What could I say? No. She led me out to the Cadillac Escalade parking lot. "You drive," she said, throwing me the keys. "Can I ask where we're going?" I was thinking about a quiet dinner, and then we'll decide on the fly. "Oh, by the way, my name is Shelley," she said with a perfect smile. She wasn't from around here and wore so much gold and diamonds that they must have added 10 pounds to her stunning figure. When she said to turn right and then left twice after driving for almost half an hour, I was confused. We pulled up to a beautiful house, but there weren't any restaurants nearby. She saw my confusion. I said a quiet dinner, but I didn't say where, right? She took my arm and we went inside. In the formal dining room, the table was already set, and it seemed like the first course was already waiting for us. "I hope you like salad, because I'm vegan and don't eat meat. It's your night, and we play by your rules." Caesar salad, tomato soup, and medium rare steak made up my dinner. Shelley had salad, and honestly, I didn't know what else. It looked like a piece of chicken, but I knew it wasn't. I was full, and when she asked about dessert, I said, maybe later. We had a glass of wine on the back deck by the pool and began to really communicate for the first time. "I know all about you, Steve, and I was quite impressed with your behavior this evening. A little cocky, but you knew what you were doing there. Your father will be pleased because I gave him a big tip that will send more than a few needy kids to camp this summer. I especially liked the moment when your ex also started bargaining for you. She knew she didn't stand a chance, but she did it anyway." "Who are you?" "Just a businesswoman from out of town, spending a couple of hours with a nice auction prize that I wasn't about to miss." She came closer and touched me with her lips, and then, licking her lower lip, she pressed herself against me. "Why don't we skip the afternoon drink and go straight to dessert?" It started going in a direction that I wasn't happy with. "You're married, right?" I asked, knowing the answer very well. "Does this matter to you?" Shelley replied, taking another sip of wine. "For me, no, but I'm wondering if cheating on your husband bothers you." She thought for a minute and looked at me before answering. "We don't have a completely open marriage, but we both allow some indiscretion. No sex of any kind is allowed, and it can only be a one-time thing with anyone. This way, when we're away and need a little release, we can get it without feeling like it's cheating. You may not agree with this, but it works for us. I don't think I could handle it. Steve, we both love each other to death, but since we both travel a lot, it's much easier than getting a divorce. But enough about that, we have more important things to do," she said, pressing my lips to hers. She wasn't happy with my answer, and after 2 more great kisses, she sent me back to my car in a taxi. I was just about to leave the house when she turned me around, gave me one last kiss, and said, "Oh, by the way, Amber says hi to you." This shocked me, and I began to rummage in my pocket to find my mobile phone. I told my mom that we just had dinner and talked. She did, however, tell me that Becky still wanted to talk to me, but I never had enough time to call her. Even though my father said it was cheesy, I still came and stood on the podium to receive my diploma. With a lot of sweat and blood, I earned every credit and deserved to pass with my class. At my parents' party, everyone congratulated me on my achievement, but also looked at me asking, was it worth it? Becky brought Danny, and instead of just leaving him, she stayed the whole evening. She interacted with my friends and family and constantly looked for me. When the party was almost over, I snuck up behind her. This time, when she turned to find me, I was right in front of her. "Oh my God, Steve, are you trying to kill me?" she said, coming to her senses. "Becky, do you want to go somewhere and just talk sometime? I don't think we've ever had or taken the time to do this, and I think it's long overdue, doesn't it? Anytime you want. Just give me some time to arrange a babysitter." "Okay, then let's set it up for Saturday, and I'll pick you up from your parents around 7 in the evening. We can have dinner and come back to my place to talk and maybe solve old problems." "I would like that," she said, smiling. "This week has been busy. They gave me a raise, and even though I was associated with the company for another 6 months, since they paid for my training, they didn't want me to leave. Listen, Steve, I can give you a raise of 7.5% immediately and another 5.5% in 9 months. You're making good progress, and while I can't promise you anything, you're being considered for an entry-level management position in the future," the boss told me. In this economy, I had no intention of going anywhere else. I was still working at the gym, but my days there were numbered. The extra money was nice since it was tax-free, but it was getting old. I coached this guy I met there, and when I was busy, he would fill in for me. I'll miss the free workouts, but like I said, I've started to enjoy the freedom a lot more since graduating. On Saturday, I picked up Becky and headed to a small Japanese restaurant on my side of town. She was friendly, but much quieter and more reserved than old Becky. The food was delicious, and we spent an hour and a half eating and chatting like we were on a first date. I tried to relax both of us into a relaxed atmosphere before we began discussing difficult issues from the past. The drive to my house was quiet and tense. I bought a bottle of Becky's favorite wine and a 6-pack of Corona in the fridge. Like I said, my house was nothing special. It was a studio apartment in one of the older buildings, but it was clean and spacious, with a full kitchen and living room. I didn't even ask her if she wanted a glass of wine. I just opened the bottle, poured her a full glass, and grabbed a cold beer for myself. I told her that we would probably be more comfortable in the living room, so she followed me there. I sat her down on the sofa and sat down on the chair directly opposite her. Silence again. It seemed like neither of us knew where to start. "It's cozy here," she said, looking around the room. "It suits me for now, but I'll probably move closer to my parents now that I've finished my studies." "Sorry," she blurted out. "Sorry, Steve. I was listening to a bunch of people I thought were my friends, but in the end, they knew nothing about me or my life. You have to believe that I never cheated on you before that night, no matter what you think. There could have been some advances, but I never did anything like that. I just need you to know this. Becky, I wanted to believe it, but with what I saw, you can understand why I had my doubts. Even with what you call flirting, I wouldn't be comfortable with it. But I think you already knew that. Steve, I was just angry and couldn't get over it. We had such a wonderful life, and I had all these big plans, but in an instant, it was all gone. I blamed you. Damn, I hated you for what happened. I was completely unprepared to become a mother. I was still a spoiled and immature girl. I wanted to enjoy life, not spend nights with a colicky baby. I don't know how many nights I sat in that rocking chair cursing you and Danny, wishing I had a chance at a repeat. But as you know, repeats don't happen in real life. Why didn't you say something? We could go to a consultant. Hell, you could have gone to someone to work through all these issues instead of pushing me away and trying to run away from something that could have been resolved with a little effort. Like I said, I listened to the wrong people, the people you told me not to see again. They told me I'd be on the easy street. You will pay alimony and child support, as well as make all the house payments. With the help of my parents, I will be able to finish my studies and have it all. Now I know I was wrong, but at the time it was so good when I only had tension and constant fatigue. When everything collapsed, for the first time I realized what I had done and tried to take it all back. I, not anyone else, came up with the plan to live together. I thought I could have it all. Becky, I knew from the very beginning that this wouldn't work. I was too in love with you. Living under the same roof, but separately only caused pain. Steve, the last few months we've lived together have been the best we've had in over a year. Do you remember how we laughed and interacted? We were like a family again. You forget that the divorce was hanging over us all the time. I haven't forgotten. Believe it or not, I was ready to stop the divorce process until that stupid night. I thought Danny and I were older and deserved another chance at happiness. What happened to Kevin shouldn't have happened. I wasn't even attached to him. I think the combination of alcohol and long-term lack of intimacy was too strong. All I remember is how we started kissing. I can't say I didn't like it, because I did, or at least at the time. I didn't think about what I had done until he left, and then it dawned on me. I prayed that you were either still away or fast asleep. I later found out that neither was true. You killed every chance we had that night. Do you know what it was like for me to lie in my bed, knowing that you were making love to someone 2 floors above? I tried my best not to go upstairs and kill you both in our old bed. I died, or something in me died that night. If you hated me, I hated you 10 times more. I wanted you to suffer. I wanted you to feel the pain that you caused me. You were no longer my wife, just some stupid slut who couldn't wait until our divorce was over before getting someone into bed. I was angry again. The pain in my stomach still burned like a hot coal that nothing could put out, neither alcohol nor time. It wasn't an act of love, it was sex. I haven't made love to someone since the last time we did it together. I'm human, I have needs. All you had to do was ask, and I would have shared your bed without hesitation, but you didn't. Share your bed? You were fucking divorcing me. And why did I have to ask? You were the initiator of this madness. How could I know you wanted this? I was trying to fix our marriage, and you, on the other hand, were playing a fucking mind game without bothering to let me know. So if you're trying to say it was my fault, like everything else in our marriage, you can kiss my ass. Everything was going wrong. Okay, I really screwed up, she screamed. We screwed up big time. So where do we go from here? Are we going to hate each other for the rest of our lives? She asked, waiting for my answer. Becky, what do you want? You, try again. It will not happen. Too much time has passed and too much pain to go back. Who said to come back? Could we start again, maybe slower this time? Look, I don't know if we can even last a day or two, but I'd like to try. Start with a clean slate, without expectations or pressure. Like I said, I don't think we have a chance of success, maybe before, but not now. Will you even think about it? I told her I'd think about it, but didn't get my hopes up. We talked, or rather she talked, for about another hour before I took her back to my parents. My brain was overloaded. I needed some time to think, so I went for a short walk. Damn, it was a long walk trying to even solve one problem. It was just after 7 o'clock in the morning, and I was knocking on the door with 2 cups of coffee in my hands. The sleepy girl opened the door. Steve, what are you doing here? Do you know what time it is? I know it's early, but I need to talk to you. Steve, this is not a good time, she said, looking back into the apartment. Are you staying in the city? Maybe we can meet later this morning. It's okay, I said, handing her both cups of coffee. I knew it was a stupid idea, but I had a lot of thoughts that included you. Go back to bed, and I'll catch up with you later. I turned around and went down the stairs. I heard Amber call my name twice before I was out of sight. If you called me impulsive, you'd probably be right. After 2 gas and pit stops, I found myself in front of Amber's apartment in Atlanta. She was the only other girl who made me weak at the knees. What the hell was I thinking? We kept in touch, talked a little, but mostly texted and sent messages. She was happy with her life, but she always told me that before I decided to settle down, I needed to talk to her. Was she still interested? I think that was the question I was trying to answer that night, or rather morning. Sometimes the one who surprises is surprised. I realized that it wouldn't be that easy. Amber tried calling and texting me for the next 12 hours, but by the time I finally got home, I was exhausted. I spent Sunday in bed, alone, sleeping and thinking about my life. I was glad the next day was Monday because I had something other than my life to think about. Amber and I finally connected, and she told me that I should have called her ahead of time instead of just showing up. She kept saying that we were more than just good friends, but we never talked about being exclusive. She really needed to know why I came to her. That was the $10,000 question, wasn't it? I apologized and said that it was a stupid move on my part and asked her not to worry about it. It was my mother who put everything in its place. I had dinner at my parents' house 3 weeks later. Dad had finished and was in the living room watching something on TV while I helped Mom with the dishes. Becky still cares about you, you know that, right? And Danny is at the age now where he's starting to ask all the tough questions about why you're not together anymore. I guess she'll have to tell him the truth, won't she? You still carry that anger inside you, I see, she said, handing me a dirty pan that needed to be washed. Blame me? She screwed up, not me. Steve, Becky was right about one thing. You both made mistakes. In your short marriage, you lived 3 different lives. At first you, Becky, and Danny struggled. Then you worked all the time and studied, and finally she did her studies. Nothing was normal. There has always been some kind of drama in your life. But is life like that, Mom? Nothing went according to plan, and when things got difficult, she left me. That's not entirely true, is it? She went through the first difficult years. She then supported you as you worked and returned to school. The problems started when she went to school. At that time, you had already begun to move away from each other, and she wanted to regain her youth. I'm not saying she was right and you were wrong, or vice versa. This is just my observation. And then things got out of control, and the rest is history. She cheated on me. Steve, by all indications, you were actually divorced, and she herself told me that she was drunk. I know it doesn't justify what she did, but I don't think you can throw stones when it comes to making stupid mistakes. Then she reminded me that I started it all. At this point, the conversation died. There were calls and emails from Amber asking how I was doing, and although I responded, my answers didn't tell the whole story. Becky gave me space. She made it clear what she wanted and even started seeing a therapist to work through many of her old problems. I was just finishing work on Friday. I had no real plans, but I told a few guys I could join them for a beer after work when I got her message. I'm at your house. How soon will you be free? It was from Amber. I should have broken all the speed records to get home to what awaited me there, but I didn't. I bought a few things at the store and thought about my next move. I was sure I would get lucky tonight because with Amber I didn't have to rely on luck. I had already told her where the key was hidden, so I knew she would be waiting for me in my apartment. She must have been looking out the window because she found herself in my arms and started kissing me passionately as soon as I closed the door. I thought you would never come home, she said, kissing me again with a deep tongue penetration. Driving makes me feel dirty. Let's take a shower and talk about our weekend while we're there. By 6:30 Saturday morning, I was lying in my bed, on my back, looking up at the dark ceiling, with Amber nestled under my arm. I almost forgot how fantastic she was. She opened first one eye, then the other. She smiled, kissed me, and then ran to the bathroom. A short time later, I heard the toilet flush, the sink turned on, and she, in all her naked beauty, returned to the room. I think she did 1.5 turns in the folded position until she was back on the bed, and her lips let me know that she was awake and ready for action again. That was nice, she said, moving even closer if possible. The next thing I knew, it was 9:30 and I was hungry, but I urgently needed a shower. I pulled a tired Amber out of bed and dragged her into the warm shower with me. There's no such thing as a quick shower with Amber. When only cold water remained, we hastily ran out and put on the essentials. You are hungry? Asked me, preparing French toast and sausages. After breakfast, we relaxed with our second cup of coffee. You made an impression on my boss. She said that you are the first guy who turned her down. I thought you would at least give her a chance and told her that if you did, she wouldn't be disappointed. Are you taking me out on dates now? Not at all. You set yourself up on a date. She just took advantage of it. Shelley is in great shape, isn't she? She and her husband own 3 gyms in the Atlanta area, and are building another outside of Athens. They are great bosses. Now, why such a surprise visit? Are your hormones going through the roof, and you need a little release that only I can give? You know, you scared that guy I was with. He thought that you were a jealous boyfriend, and that he was doomed to die. She laughed. I just came to a crossroads and needed to look at the map to understand where I was going. Amber looked at me strangely and continued talking about her life. She studied toward a degree in exercise science while redesigning all of the classes that were offered at their institutions. She loved the busy life and nightlife of Atlanta. Amber had all the plans for her life, and it seemed like she knew what she wanted and how to get it, at least on paper. Steve, you know there are a lot of good jobs in Atlanta. I'm sure you can find one that will pay more than what you are getting now. Plus, you don't have to travel 7 hours to get the quality call you deserve. She kissed me again. We spent Saturday chatting and catching up. That night, she outdid herself. I'm still the best, aren't I? I simply nodded in agreement, pulled her closer, and fell asleep. Life was good at that moment. She found me in the kitchen, a little after 9 in the morning. Breakfast was ready, and I waited for her to get up before I started eating. Damn, I could get used to being treated like that in no time, she said, taking a cup of coffee and sitting next to me at the bar. I need to leave by noon. It's a long trip, and I hate driving in the dark. We had a pleasant breakfast, and by 10 o'clock, we were in the shower together. We found ourselves at the back wall of the shower again, kissing and exchanging kisses and tongues until the water ran out again. Your turn next time, she said, packing her things and preparing to leave. Give me a couple of weeks and I'll come. If you come on Friday, I'll show you around the city. Maybe you can arrange some interviews, she said with hope in her voice. When I started to say Amber, she stopped me in my tracks. No, I don't want to hear it, okay? We can do this. I know we can. 7 hours is not that far. I can be exclusive knowing that I will see you every 2 weeks. We can do this. She knew what I was going to say. I hugged her and wanted to cry. I think about you and maybe I love you, but I just can't. My son and family are here and I can't leave them, at least not yet. You have plans and you're not ready to settle down yet. Maybe in a couple of years, who knows? For the second time in my life, I felt an emptiness in my stomach. It wasn't just about sex, which was amazing. She was just easy to be around. Steve, let's just give ourselves time. Let's not write this off. I told you to keep me at the top of your list, and I still mean it. Damn it, you're not getting married tomorrow, are you? Give it time, that's all I ask. She wasn't going to take no for an answer. I walked her to the car, kissed her, and told her to drive carefully. I threw her bag in the back seat, and with a rib hug and a few more kisses, she drove off. I died a little more that morning, but I realized that I couldn't change my life to please everyone else. I had to live my life, not someone else's. I gave up my second job and found an apartment near my parents' house. Right now, I'm focused on getting my life in order. I set my priorities. First family, then work, and life went on. I tried to see Danny at least a couple times a week, and instead of avoiding Becky, I finally faced and let go of my anger. Becky still wants to start over with me. We've gone on dates a few times in the last 2 months, even as a family. However, I'm in no rush to do anything right now, and besides, Becky has her hands full with Danny and school. Will we get back together? I highly doubt there are trust issues, but damn, strange things happen sometimes. Amber, she's planning a trip to Florida in 2 weeks and told me to give her a whole day off. So I've been working out a little harder at the gym and taking extra vitamins every day in preparation for her arrival. But for now, I'm spending Friday night and all Saturday with Becky at my house. She calls it a weekend of sex, and I'm interested to see if she's learned anything new. I know I have. Have I fully recovered? Not yet. After such losses, you are not left without scars. It still hurts when I think about it, but I no longer drive myself crazy wondering, what if? I still want to settle down and find someone special to share my life with, but I'm not setting a time frame. It will happen when it's supposed to happen. Well, I think that's how it should be.